Hi everyone, I'm John White. This is our third SEMA talk. SEMA standing for Spooky2 Ask Me Anything. It's a talk where we invite experts to come in and talk about their given subject. Today we're going to talk about the Spooky2 software and the various functions within the software. Now, what I'll do, I'll switch to sharing screen. Okay, now I'll just confirm that everything is being seen. Can you see my screen, Alex? My desktop. Okay, wonderful. That's me in the bottom corner there. The Spooky2 software can be downloaded from spooky2.com. You go to the downloads page. And you scroll down to where it has these two here. Now the full package includes the Spooky2 software installer plus the very valuable user's guide. I recommend that you click on this and you download it. Now it's going to take 11 minutes, 10 minutes or so. Well, it's getting there. Fortunately, we don't have to wait. The internet connection where we are at the moment is not too fast, but I already have a copy of the Spooky2 software on my desktop. So I'll minimize the download and I've got the setup program on the desktop. I'll go through the installation procedure now. We'll double click on the Spooky2 exe. Do you want to allow this app from an unknown publisher? Hey, I'm not unknown. Many people know me. To make changes to your PC? Well, we'll choose yes. The files inside the installation package are extracted out. We choose the language. I'll choose English in OK. Welcome to the Spooky2 setup program. This program will install Spooky2 on your computer. It is strongly recommended that you exit Windows programs before running the setup program. Now I've got to leave some things running, otherwise you can't see me, such as this video conferencing software. So I'll just select Next. Do I agree to a license agreement? Well, I agree to use the software for free. Okay, next. I choose the destination directory. The default directory is Spooky2. Next. At this point in time, Spooky2 is installing the Spooky2 software onto your computer. There's no other intervention required at this point. You can see the presets are being installed now. The presets are a very handy way of running programs, and we'll be covering that very shortly. That's our lovely Spooky2 logo there. A beautiful Spooky2. Okay, registering components. It's finished copying. I can select to start Spooky2 immediately. I won't, because I want to show you how to do it from the start menu. I click Start, go down to Spooky2 down here in the apps, and I click on there. This is Windows 10 that I'm running at the moment. I wanted to show how to install Spooky2 in the latest Windows version, which hadn't previously had Spooky2 installed. Now when Spooky2 first starts, the databases are loaded. No generators were detected. Now during this demonstration, I don't have any generators connected to my computer, so it's only showing you how to run the software. If I select no, because the drivers have already been installed, so it's asking me no generators were detected except in installed drivers, no, and Spooky2 will run in test mode. And there's the main screen. There's 4 tabs at the top: presets, programs, control, and errors. The first thing you do when you start the software is you choose a preset. If you have a Spooky remote and you want to treat via remote sessions, you can choose the appropriate presets here. If you want to choose your own programs, you go to Shell preset, you go to Remote, and then you choose the appropriate preset here. All of these presets have got no frequencies, and you have to add the programs yourself. If you want to treat yourself for, as an example, for hearing loss, there will be a healing preset which you'd select here. You then go to Programs. The Programs tab shows all the programs that are in the Spooky2 program. At the moment, it's indicating there's 22,939 programs. I'll show you more on that later. In the search field, I enter the word hearing, and all the database entries that are related to hearing are here. And so I can select hearing disorders perhaps, and I may suspect that my eustachian tube may be damaged as well. Now to select any of these programs, I double click and the loaded programs appear here. The next thing I do is go to the Control tab. You'll see that there's a checkbox here. When you check this checkbox, it means that when you click on a red box here, which means that each red box represents a generator. When you click on the checkbox there and you select the generator, the programs that are loaded down here get transferred to the generator that you choose. You'll see at the moment there's lots of generators here. They're not physical generators at the moment because I'm running in test mode. If you do run it in real mode, you'll have boxes around this area here. The more generators that you have, the more red boxes that will be appearing there. So I'll choose just number 2 for generator number 2. Generator number 2, I'm running the healing preset. You'll see that my 2 programs have been loaded here and the frequencies have also been loaded. What you do now is you press the start button. The waveforms are loaded into the generator and the program starts. If you have your DNA inside the Spooky remote for that generator, you'll be now treating yourself for hearing disorders. Those are the basic steps for running a program. There's other ways of running programs, ways that make it much more easy. If I go to miscellaneous, remote, and I choose healing and regeneration. This is a preset written by David Burke. When I click on this preset, you'll see that a lot of programs came up. There's also notes that have been entered to explain more about the preset. So David Burke has taken the time to create a preset that already has all the programs in it. You then can skip the Programs tab and go straight to Control. Allow generator overrides. Choose a generator and press Start. The first step is pausing for 60 seconds, so no frequencies are coming out. But if you manually skip to the next step in the program, the frequencies start. We'll leave that running and I'll show you other things. Now, if you've got dental issues, overall dental health, that's a preset written by Jeff Kagsaw. If you click on there, you'll see that there's 4 programs that have been entered, and there's got good preset notes there as well. And so you can scroll through and read the notes thoroughly. Make sure that you understand what the preset does. You then go to Control, Allow Overwrites. Now I'm going to overwrite the program that was in generator number 2. So I click on there. These programs have been transferred across, running the overall dental health preset, and you press Start. You'll see that 2 of the generators are now green indicating that the generator is running. Now Spooky2 is quite unique. It can control many generators simultaneously and totally independently. So while the dental health program is running on generator number 2, if I click on number 3, it's still going through the healing and regeneration. And so it's fully independent. These 3 icons here, at the moment I'm in the miscellaneous remote preset section. I can go up 1 level, which will bring miscellaneous, or I can click the home button, and that takes me to the very top. When you first get your Spooky2 kit, what I recommend, the very first thing you should do is you go to Detox. You go to Remote, and there are these 2 presets which have been written by Brian Yamamoto. These presets are excellent detox programs. If you don't know much about how to control Spooky, do this first. Go to your Detox remote and choose the terrain. There's the terrain plane and there's one terrain minus Mercury. If you click on the Mercury one, it explains to you in the notes that the Mercury frequencies have been taken out. Many people are cursed with amalgams in their mouth. There's thought that the Mercury detox programs will introduce more mercury into your bloodstream. And so if you're concerned, if you have amalgam fillings, you choose the bottom preset there. Then you go to Control, Allow Generator Overrides, choose any generator you like. It gets loaded and you press Start. Now in a previous summer session I've mentioned how Spooky2 has got over 40,000 programs. Now at the moment Spooky2 is only showing, wait for it, 22,939 programs. So why isn't it showing more of them? Well, Spooky2 has got an advanced mode. If you go to the Presets tab, there's an advanced checkbox here. If you click on the advanced checkbox, more tabs appear along the top. If you click to the System tab, you can select a non-human base pair database. Once you select that, Spooky2 will reload the databases and the program count will be indicated here. This is not necessary. It's more for advanced users if they want to have more programs to choose from. The non-human base pair database are the base pairs for things like plants and animals, which don't normally get used. There's also another database which we can load, which is the molecular weight database. The molecular weight database entries are, they contain the frequencies that emulate chemicals and compounds. And so you can run a program which emulates a particular drug that you wish to use. The molecular weight frequency database takes longer to load because it contains a lot of notes. The notes are very handy for research, and we'll be going through that very, very shortly. It's just loading the non-human database now. Okay, so if we go to the programs list, as soon as it stops loading list 1, we go to the programs tab. You'll see the total now is over 41,000. With every release of Spooky2, we make sure that the databases are as up to date as possible. The base pair database relies on researchers doing genome sequencing. As you may be aware, scientists, the rate of which genomes are being sequenced is rapidly accelerating. And so now, pretty much every day, more and more genomes are being sequenced. Once a genome has been sequenced, we can add that to our database, which means we have the frequencies that can disable that pathogen. And so we've got 41,000 programs now. Now if I do something, if I do a search for the word search, for the word tooth, you'll see there's 47 hits now. Most of them are in the main database, but you'll see that there's some entries that have come up in a molecular weight database, the MW, and there's one that's in the BP database. As I mentioned before, the molecular weight database entries have got a lot of notes. I'll move myself down a little bit so I can see the notes properly. Now, with every single chemical that's in the molecular weight database, there's a great explanation of what it does, how it's absorbed, how it's being used by the body, and its chemical composition. And so it's wonderful for the research there. If you do select both the molecular weight database and the non-human database, Spooky2 will take longer to load. It's got to put more information into the memory. But once it's loaded, it doesn't slow down the function of the program. So if I go back to the control, you'll see that these programs will still be running. They'll be still running at the same rate. There's no change in the way it's working. You'll see that the control tab looks different. There's a whole lot of things that have appeared down here. That's because I have got the advanced checkbox checked, and so more options are available. There's tab in the settings. It's very complicated. It's showing lots of pretty lines and a whole lot of numbers that you enter. Now, have a look at these waveforms, and we'll change to a different preset. We'll go to the home directory. We'll choose a cancer, maybe a contact mode cancer program. This is one that I wrote a while ago with the basic notes there. So if I if I go to the settings, you'll see that the waveform is very different. The magic behind presets is that you don't need to make any changes in this tab here. It's horribly complicated, but you don't need to touch it because the presets change everything for you. If you wish to choose your own programs, you go to the home page of your presets, you go to your shell or empty presets, then you choose the hardware that you're using, whether it's contact mode, using our TENS pads or our silver conductive fabric accessories. you use our plasma for our Spooky Central, or use the remote for our Spooky Remote. So if you're fortunate enough to have a Spooky Central, you click on the plasma and you can choose between two different presets here. There's one which is the golden ratio, and there's an explanation here of why the golden ratio is quite important, or quite interesting anyway, mathematically. But I suggest for starting off, just use the general preset. Then, because it's a shell preset, there won't be any programs, and you select the programs you want to run. And so you can choose any of the programs which are in the database. What's this one here? Tumor on root of tooth. That sounds like a type of problem that Spooky Central can get rid of very quickly. So I'll double click on that one there. We have a tab here for options. With Spooky Central, we don't need to have the runtime very long. And so we don't have any repeats for frequencies, for the programs, or sequence, or chains, or anything. We just leave that by default. The preset has looked after that for you. The same with the settings. The whole settings have been looked after by that preset. So you go straight to the control. You choose a generator that's free. I'll choose number 4 because there's no reason why not. And then you click on start. Now with the program that I've selected, it will run for 30 minutes. It is run for 5, 6 seconds and so on. That will click up to 30 minutes and then it will stop. You'll see the progress of the program here. The further down it is, the further it's progressed. Okay. There are other features which I'll be covering here shortly, but the Internet tab has come up, and that one allows you to email directly from within Spooky. And you can visit the various social media that's associated with Spooky2, like the forum, the Facebook groups, YouTube and Vimeo videos. It's all there. The errors tab shows you any problems that have arisen. If one of your generators has stopped communicating, if it's lost its power, for example, the log will come up here that the generator has got a fault. What I've shown you now is all you need to know to run Spooky2. Anything here on in is for advanced users. So really, to use Spooky, you don't need that advanced checkbox selected at all. You just need these 3 control tabs. But we'll venture into the advanced tab now. Now, I'll start answering a few questions that have come in. The first question, now there's no names to these questions I have here, so I'm not sure who asked them. The first person has asked how to create a spectrum sweep. Well, of course, the question before this is, what is a spectrum sweep? Well, spectrum sweep is a way of reducing the time it takes to perform a sweep. If you sweep from one frequency to another and you do it in a linear fashion, it takes quite a long time. But there's a way that you can apply many frequencies at the same time, and the spectrum sweep does this. And you do a spectrum sweep like this. You click on File at the very top menu, and you've got these selections here. You click on Create Spectrum Sweep, funnily enough, and this form comes up, Create Spectrum Sweep. Now, I'm going to create a sweep between 100 kilohertz and 200 kilohertz. Those frequencies are just random numbers that don't mean anything. So I'll call it temporary or temp program name, spectrum low frequency. I enter in 100,000 hertz, and the spectrum high frequency is 200,000 hertz. frequency tolerance. Royal Rife found that a frequency tolerance of 0.025% was required for adequate killing. And so I'm going to leave that. Frequency application time. This means during the sweep, each frequency is being hit for 180 seconds. And so we'll leave that. That's 3 minutes. Wave cycle multiplier. This determines how many frequencies are being simultaneously transmitted. If it's 96, it means that there's 96 different frequencies either side of the set frequency, which is a lot of frequencies being produced simultaneously. Now the problem with this is the power that's being produced by the Spooky remote is being divided into 96. And so each frequency is getting a very low power signal. If we leave it at 96, you'll see that the total duration time is 23 minutes. I'll change that to 32 and see what the effect is on the total sweep duration. I've tabbed out, and that is now 1 hour and 5 minutes. I like using 32 for a wave cycle multiplier, and that will be the default for Spooky in subsequent releases. In the top left-hand corner, you'll see that I'm running Spooky2 0401. This is the upcoming 1st of April version of Spooky2. It's a very late stage beta. It's going to be released in a few days' time. The final tab here is frequency hits per sweep. There's a facility where you can hit a frequency many times, and so I want to hit it 2 times. The sweep duration has doubled now to 2 hours and 8 minutes, but that's not a big problem because it's using Spooky Remote. Spooky Remote, of course, you set it up and you walk away. You don't have to worry about it. There's 3 different ways that Spooky2 can apply a spectrum sweep. There's a regular or single spectrum sweep, which uses just one output. There's a dual converged sweep, which uses both outputs. And there's a dual weighted sweep. Now, for the purposes of general Spooky2 explaining, these they're too complex for explaining now. We may cover that in a different session or a different video, but just leave everything else as the default. And so I've set the program name, set the frequency range. I left the tolerance as it was, left that as it was. I did change that, 32. I could have left it at 96, but I feel more comfortable having more power at each frequency. So the power is divided into 32 frequencies instead of 96 frequencies, and I save it. Are you sure you want to save and exit? Well, I think so, so I'll press yes. Now, because that frequency has been added to the database, Spooky2 must reload the databases. And so we're loading the molecular weight frequency database now. At this stage, Spooky2 will have created a custom database, and that gets loaded in the background automatically. The base pair frequency database is being loaded, and then there's going to be the non-human base pair frequencies for the plants and animals and, well, other miscellaneous things. Okay, now if I go to the Programs tab and I clear the search button, because there's so many programs in the database loaded into Spooky, loading list 1 will take a bit longer, and it's now incremented the program count by 1. If I do a string search for the word temp, and I try and find my custom program that I've loaded, This is the program here, the one that I've just created. The notes which get put here are manual settings that you must set in the Settings tab. And so X equals 32, spectrum equals 33.333. So because I've created a program, I'm not going to use a preset. I'm going to do it manually, which means going into this screen here. The wave cycle multiplier for the square wave that has been selected, I'll set that at 32 in the spectrum of 33.333. This is advanced stage, so if it looks very confusing, don't worry, I will be covering it more in another video. Because these frequencies are being shared across many different frequencies, or the power is being shared across many frequencies, I'm going to increase the amplitude to 20. And I'm going to have an offset of 0. So we've got maximum signal swing. I'll do the same for output number 2, 0. I'm going to select output number 2 for inverse plus sync. Inverse plus sync means output number 2 will follow output number 1 in the frequency. I then go to Control, Allow Generator Overrides. Select a free generator, which will have my DNA sample in it. Oh, I hadn't cleared the programs. So I'll clear the programs that are there. I'm wondering whether I should do this from the very beginning. Okay. I'll select the program again, which I'd created, temp. Allow generator overrides. Load the temp program in, and I press start. And you can see the sweep has now commenced. The sweep duration being 2 hours and 8 minutes. We can leave that running in the background. We've got these generators still running, doing their programs. You see there, this program is now advanced to the 4th step. It's been running for 10, 11 minutes now. And so it's a fully independent, multiple generator control system. Okay, so that answers the first question. How do you create a spectrum sweep? Oh, we're still on the subjects of sweep. The second question is how to create a carrier sweep. Well, there's people that have been in the Rife community for a while are familiar with doing sweeps using a fixed carrier. The problem with this is that the carrier is providing a strong signal at a fixed frequency for a long duration, and that can cause damage. And so we've created a carrier sweep. To create a carrier sweep, you select File and then Create Carrier Sweep. It explains at the top how carrier sweeps are superior to modulation sweeps, which is what a fixed carrier sweep is all about. We change the carrier rather than the modulation, and in doing so we move the powerful frequency across a range of frequencies, so it's not fixed. Okay, temporary carrier sweep. I'm going to set the parameters for the carrier sweep here. The center frequency is the frequency which is going to get the most power. Let's say I've got a Cancer. And so I'll choose the Cancer frequency, which is 1.604 megahertz. I'm going to apply a modulation frequency. You did notice that the picture at the bottom here changed. Each spike represents where the power from the signal is going to be deposited. And so this is the carrier area, sorry, this is the Cancer area here. And so it shows that there's a lot of power. The top of that spike there is where the carrier frequency where the cancer frequency is 1.604 megahertz. You'll see that there's a harmonic up here of 3.208 megahertz. This is because the waveforms have got harmonics, and there's one further up and it goes up. But each time it goes up, the strength of the signal is reduced. So you want to put the power where it matters. If I wish to have a broader range here, I increase the modulation. If I go to a 25 kilohertz modulation, you'll see that the power is spread out further now. And so there's a dead spot here, but it spikes again at the cancer frequency. I leave the frequency tolerance as it is, and the same with the application time. 300 seconds, that's good enough for me. 6 minutes. What you'll see in many Rife manufacturer sites is this waveform, something similar to this, and they'll show you how much power they have over a very wide area. What they do is they show the power in the logarithmic scale. We can do the same. We can show how wonderful Spooky2 covers every single frequency from 0 up to infinity and beyond. But this isn't honest. The logarithmic scale makes the very small signals seem very powerful. And so yes, we've got the option there, but the default is showing the more honest way of representing where the power goes. There will be some signal even in this area here, for example, but it's so weak that it's ineffective and shouldn't really be shown. But I guess for the sake of sales, we should be showing this, shouldn't we? We can enter notes here, so I can say it's my first carrier sweep, exciting times. Okay, so I then save the program. Am I really sure I want to save it? Yes, I'll give it a go. Now here's the long delay again whilst the frequency database is being loaded. Maybe while this is loading I can go through again the websites that we have. Now this is still the downloads page. If we've got access to our forum here. If we click on the forum tab here, the forum will load. For new users, you register here and you read these terms carefully, agree to them. Now please remember, the Spooky2 forum, like everything that we do, we like to be open and honest. So please enter your real first and last name here. When we have chats within the forum, we like to know who we're talking to. And so don't give yourself a random name. Use your real name, your real email address, and choose a good password. And then join our forum. The forum is wonderful for learning how to use Spooky2. We've got a huge membership now, and these people are here to help and to share their knowledge. Okay, Spooky2 has loaded the database again. So if I search for carrier sweep, you'll see that our carrier sweep has appeared. Now I won't make the same mistake twice. I'll clear the loaded programs. You clear it by clicking on this button here. That's got a sweep there with across a broom. So you click on there. You double click on the program that you want to run. Now this is the program that we've just created. The notes here are shown. The settings. Let's have a look. Application time. Settings, choose a square waveform with a wave cycle multiplier of 1. I recommend that you use maximum of 20 volts for the amplitude because it's, again, the power being used across a broad spectrum. But if you're using something like Spooky Central, You must use an amplitude of 5 volts and an offset of 100 for both output number 1 and output number 2. You can see the waveform has changed. Allow generator overrides. Choose the generator channel that you want to use and press start, and the sweep is started automatically. Now there's further instructions in our user's guide. You'll see that output number 2 is fixed. This is our modulation, and it's the carrier that's changing. So it's a good way of preventing a fixed frequency being applied to your body for any length of time. Again, this is kind of an advanced question. If you don't understand it, it's okay. We've got more information in both the user's guide and other literature that we have written. The other literature is in the download section of spooky2.com. So I'll go back to that. And in the downloads page, you'll see that there's the user's guide and other very useful information. You've got the 4 packages, software, and the software guides. So user's guide in the different languages. The frequently asked questions is a very good document to download because new users will need to know how to, well, they've got common questions, so these are answered. Okay. Why can't I load a program into the generator? This is a common mistake. I've got these 2 programs loaded, abdominal inflammation and abdominal pain. If I go to control and I click on a generator, if the generator hasn't got the allow generator overrides tag checkbox selected, nothing will come up. Well, that's not very good. And these have disappeared. Well, what you've not done is after the programs are selected and you go to the control tab, you've got to allow the generator to have the program loaded in. And so you select allow generator overrides and you'll see the programs are loaded in. Have you got questions that have come in? I've got some questions here already, but let's see. Maybe I'll come back to them and answer the questions that have come in from our viewers because they're very important. So we're running out of time again. Okay. Pardon me, I should run a program for sneezing. Maria Foltz, you're asking, am I able to run programs remotely for my parents that I live in another state? Hi Maria. Well, if your parents live on another planet, you could still run programs that are for your parents. It doesn't matter where they are. The DNA is entangled. And so if you treat your parents' DNA, your parents will be receiving the frequencies. You've also asked, how do I add generators while running other programs? If you do wish to add more generators into your Spooky2 rig, you must shut down Spooky2. When Spooky2 starts, he searches for the connected generators to your system. And so if you add more generators to your system, they've got to be recognized. So shut down Spooky and then restart it after you've reconnected the generators and turned them on. Okay, I'll try and race through these other questions and try and squeeze them all in for the time we've got left. How to use frequency wobble? Well, let's have a look. I'll choose generator number 4. That's now been running for 23 minutes. I'm going to do a frequency wobble. So I clicked on the frequency wobble here, and you'll see that the frequency has started wobbling. The amount that it wobbles is set in this frequency tab. You can set the percentage of the wobble and how many steps and what wobble pattern it has. This is all explained in the user's guide in more detail. And so that's how you do the one type of frequency wobble. There's another way as well. I've got a program that's already been loaded. If I go to the settings, I can set it to always have a wobble. And so I can have, say, a sawtooth wobble of maybe 0.5%. So if I allow generator overrides and I click start, when the program runs, even without selecting wobble here, it will wobble because it's been set to wobble. And so this is the two different ways you can do the frequency wobbles. One is the settings, where it wobbles all the time, and the other one is within the control pane. When should we use frequency limits? Frequency limits are set in the settings down the bottom. You can set the frequency limits for output number 1 and output number 2. Our generator has 2 outputs. Some hardware requires a frequency range, such as our Spooky Central. If I go to a preset and I go to a Spooky Central General preset, if I then click the Settings tab, the frequency limits have been set appropriately for both output number 1 and output number 2. Output number 1 is the input, and Spooky Central has got a maximum frequency of 3.5 megahertz. And so that's been set to the top here, the maximum frequency, and the minimum is 100 kilohertz, and that again has been set. You'd also see that the amplitude and the offset's been automatically set correctly. And so the presets are probably the best way of setting up your hardware, and everything like your frequency limits is set for you within the preset. Some people use voltage settings as low as 1 or 2 volts. Isn't that too low for a Rife machine? Well, in our research, we're finding that the very low frequencies actually do work very well. It's like it's the information of the frequency that matters when you're using Spooky Remote, rather than any particular power of frequency. And so we found that even fractions of a volt have been okay. And so if you choose a program, if I go to the say a healing preset and use one of your Jeff Cagshaw presets that he's written, he's got this preset set to 10 volts. I can set it to 0.5 of a volt. And so all I've done is I've loaded the preset, changed the amplitude, go to the control tab, allow overwrites, the old program gets overwritten with the new, and I press start. You can see that the amplitude is now half a volt. This has been very good for people. They've reported excellent results, even at such a low voltage. Okay, output 2 equals output number 1 times is grayed out, and why? This user is asking me why they can't select this option up here. It's not grayed out at the moment. If I choose inverse plus sync, that means that the signal from output number 1 is synchronized with output number 2. And if it's synchronized, it means the frequency has got to be the same. And so this output number 2 equals output number 1 times da-di-da-di-da. That's grayed out and I have no control over it. If I don't synchronize it, then I can edit it. And so it's because it's got synchronization either through the inverse plus sync or the spike plus sync. Both of these will grey out those controls, so you no longer can change them. And the final question I have in my list, I see there's a lot come in. How to add a dynamic carrier and fixed carrier. Okay, for machines that can accept a dynamic carrier, like our Spooky Central, we go to the presets, go to home, go to a shell preset, and I'll go to plasma and I'll choose Spooky Central. That sets most of the parameters correctly. Now, the output number 2 control is the key, because the output number 2 is the carrier. Well, kind of the carrier. The fixed carrier, let's see. there's different ways, and they're covered in more detail, but you can now set output number 2 to be an input, and output number 1 is the modulation, and you swap the frequencies. And so output number 2 becomes output number 1. That's the one of the ways that many people are using a variable carrier frequency, because the carrier is being used at the input rather than modulation. And the fixed carrier, if you want to use output number 2 for the carrier signal, you make output number 2 equals output number 1 times 0, because you want to start with, you don't want to alter the carrier, and then you have a 3.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so there's a 3.1 megahertz carrier that's going to output number 2, and because it's swapping, it'll be going to output number 1. Sorry it's going so fast. A lot of information to take in, but it's all in the user's guide, so please spend the time to go through the relevant documentation. I've got a lot of other questions to cover. Okay. Thanks everyone for your patience. Okay, Barry Guy, I believe it is. Sorry if I've mispronounced your surname. You've asked a few questions. One of these generators, always the same one, blinks on and off while in operation with a red background. What you're referring to is in the control tab. If any of these generators have the text blinking with the red and black in the red background, it means that that generator's got a fault. Somewhere the communication has been lost between the software and the generator. It may be when the generator is low on power. For example, you've inadvertently switched the power off and on, or some USB hubs that are used by our users. Some of them are not very high quality, and so the Spooky2 has detected that there's a communication error. If you go to the Errors tab, more information on the reason why there is an error will be shown on this page. To address this issue, make sure that all your cables are terminated correctly, in particular your USB cable and the power cable to your XM generator. Once you've ensured that they're all plugged in correctly, if the fault is still present, because Spooky2 can recover from many faults, but if the fault is still present, shut down your Spooky2 software and restart it again. Spooky2 will reinitialize your generator and will start everything up again. Our Spooky Central can introduce a lot of noise, electrical noise, into the environment. Because Spooky Central is so powerful, it can affect other generators that are nearby. And so try and keep your other sensitive equipment, including the controlling computer, as far away from Spooky Central as possible. Question number two, Barry, you're asking, I'm using 3 remote generators to run killing cancer wavelengths that I've obtained from 3 separate biofeedback sessions. I'm running all 3 simultaneously for the same individual. Is this acceptable? Yes, it is, Barry. It is acceptable, and it's very good because you're using the power from the 3 generators simultaneously to help heal this person. It will be good to have also a 4th generator, if you have one, running a detox program simultaneously to clean out all the rubbish that's being generated as a result of the other 3 generators doing their job. Really, I've been told that our viewers are watching this video very carefully. I'm sorry that I brushed through some of the details very quickly. Spooky2 is a complex software because it does complex things. There's no other software on this planet which has got such a large database or the facilities of Spooky2. Most programs can control one generator, whereas Spooky2 can control many. So of course the complexity is going to be a little bit higher. but I recommend that new users just stick to using a preset initially, because the preset sets all the parameters correctly to the hardware that you're wishing to control. In the presets tab, if you go to the home page, the shell empty presets is the best way to select the settings for the hardware that you have. You've even got Spooky Coil here, Spooky Audio. We've got a little speaker that you can place under your pillow as you sleep. We've got many different accessories that are all designed to help you with your illness. The facility of Spooky2 goes beyond just frequencies for healing, and as far as we have, sorry about the noise, that's distracting. We have in the utils, we have a colloidal solver calculator. You can calculate using this form the parameters for creating your own colloidal solver. And this colloidal solver will use the Spooky2 colloidal solver waveform, and it will create a colloidal solver which is fresher than the solver that you can buy commercially. It'll be much cheaper, and it will be most probably be higher quality if you follow the instructions. We have documentation on this as well. So Spooky2 does an awful lot, and to squeeze this into one software package has the result of making the package rather complex, especially if you look into the settings tab. But over time you'll get familiar with it, and you'll realize just how powerful and how flexible Spooky2 is. So for the very beginning, keep it in the simple mode, just use the presets, choose the programs, and then start it. Well, I guess this concludes our third summer session. I'd like to thank all our viewers for taking the time to tune in and watch me doing, describing the software, and thank you for the questions that were asked. I hope that you use this information for good and you heal yourself and your loved ones. Well, thank you very much, and I'm sorry it's gone over time for the third time. I'd like to invite other experts into our future talks. If you've got a subject you'd like to explain to users and you've got some expertise in the subject, please email us and let us know what you'd like to talk about. The format for the sessions are flexible. For the first two, it was a talk and then question and answer. This one was a more of a sharing a page. Because it's software, I thought it's more appropriate to show my screen, and it'll be easy to explain how to drive Spooky2. We can also have a hosted session if you're feeling more comfortable with someone asking questions that's sitting in our couch just next to here, or whether you want to do it from the comfort of your own home and have someone ask you questions, or whether you want to do it all on your own. It's up to you. But please drop us a line and show your expression of interest. We'll have a wonderful week, and we'll catch you next week. Thank you. Goodbye.